Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're wading into a really tough case, one that's gripped South Africa, and definitely caught international attention, the disappearance of 6-year-old Joshlin Smith.
Yeah, it's a difficult one. We've gathered quite a bit of material for this deep dive, news reports, trial details, witness statements, background info. It pieces together a pretty disturbing story.
And the absolute heart of it, the mystery laid out in these sources, is it's stark. You have a missing child, Joshlin. But the key people involved her mother, the mother's boyfriend, a friend they've actually been convicted, sentenced to life for kidnapping and trafficking her.
Right. But Joshlin herself, still not found. Yeah. That's the core puzzle, the really unsettling part we're looking into today, based on the reports.
Exactly. So our mission here is to walk you through what the sources say are the known facts, explore those really shocking allegations made in court.
Look at the sort of societal issues that seem woven into this tragedy, according to the reports.
And basically figure out where things stand now, given this awful uncertainty.
Okay, so let's start with the basics. Joshlin Smith, described in the sources as fair-skinned, striking blue-green eyes. She went missing from home. This was Middlepos, an informal settlement in Saldanha Bay, South Africa, back in February 2024.
And her disappearance, especially with that description, it just blew up. Huge search, very public. We're talking K9 units, drones, helicopters.
The whole country was looking, basically. And initially, the focus, or at least the sympathy, was with her mother, Kelly Smith.
Right. The story she gave reported initially was that she'd left Joshlin with her boyfriend, Jacquen Appollis, came back, and Joshlin was gone.
That was the narrative. But as the investigation unfolded and things moved towards the trial, that picture started to look very, very different, according to what came out later.
Yeah, dramatically different. This is where the sources detail some really deeply disturbing claims made under oath.
The central allegation presented in court, that Joshlin wasn't just missing, she was sold.
Sold by her own mother.
That was the prosecution's case. So Kelly Smith, her boyfriend Jacquen Appollis, and their friend Steveno van Rhyn, they were the ones on trial. Kidnapping, human trafficking, all pleaded not guilty.
And the case against them, it really seems to have hinged on witness testimony based on the reporting.
Very heavily.
Yeah.
One of the most crucial witnesses, highlighted in the sources, was Laurentia Lombard. She was described as a neighbor, a friend of Kelly Smith's. She became a state witness.
Okay, and what did Lombard testify? What's reported?
Well, according to the sources covering the trial, Lombard stated that Kelly confessed right to her. Said something like, "I did something silly. I sold my child to a Sangoma."
A Sangoma, that's a traditional healer in South Africa, for listeners who might not know.
Correct. And the alleged reason given in that confession, according to Lombard's testimony, it was chillingly specific.
What was it?
Lombard alleged Kelly told her the person taking Joshlin wanted her specifically for her eyes and skin.
Oh, wow. That suggests a really specific, awful motive tied to how she looked.
Exactly. And the NPA, the National Prosecuting Authority, they later described the purpose, the alleged purpose behind the trafficking as exploitation, namely slavery or practices similar to slavery. It's grim stuff.
And Lombard's testimony apparently went further, detailing things she claimed happened on the day Joshlin vanished.
Yes. She testified, according to reports, that Kelly told her boyfriend, Appollis, to have Joshlin ready by 2 p.m. That was supposedly the pickup time.
Okay.
And then Lombard claims she actually saw Kelly walking with Joshlin toward a white car, saw both of them get in, and that, Lombard testified, was the last time she ever saw Joshlin.
And there are also claims about hush money. Lombard mentioned that too.
She did. Part of her testimony, as reported, was that Kelly offered her R$1,000, that's maybe around $50 US, and offered Steveno van Rhyn R$1,200 to keep quiet about the whole plan.
It's really striking how different people reported hearing different but equally disturbing things from Kelly Smith herself. Like the local pastor, he testified too, right?
He did, yeah. His testimony, according to sources, claimed that way back in 2023, before the disappearance, he'd heard Kelly talking about selling her children.
Selling them, plural.
Plural. He testified, she mentioned a figure of R$20,000 each, which is, about $1,100 US? But apparently she also said she'd take less, maybe R$5,000, like $275.
Yeah.
It suggests, the idea wasn't new.
And then completely different again is what Joshlin's teacher said Kelly told her during the search.
Right, the teacher, Edna Mart. She testified that Kelly told her Joshlin was on a ship inside a container and they were on the way to West Africa.
So multiple conflicting stories allegedly coming from Kelly herself. It just adds layers of suspicion, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And other witnesses sort of filled in the background picture. A social worker testified about neglect, that Joshlin and her brother had suffered neglect. And a neighbor claimed they saw Kelly dragging Joshlin into a shack the night before she was reported missing.
So when you step back and look at all these testimonies, all this information in the sources, it feels like this case is just tangled up with some really big, difficult societal issues.
Definitely. Poverty is a huge one. It's right there in the sources. They lived in middle posts, this impoverished, informal settlement. Kelly apparently did odd jobs, sometimes got paid in groceries, and that alleged motive, selling her child, was linked by some testimony directly to needing money.
And drug addiction is another thread running through it.
A clear one. Kelly reportedly had a history of substance abuse, started young, around 15. Sources mentioned she could be abusive when high. And crucially, there were claims that adults were using drugs in the shack the day Joshlin went missing.
Which might explain the delay in reporting her missing.
Possibly contributed, yeah. Though the judge, it's noted, acknowledged their drug use, but was very clear it wasn't an excuse for their actions. He didn't accept it as mitigation.
And then there's the history of child neglect, even before the disappearance. That's social workers' testimony.
Right, about the neglect. And there was even a detail in some reports about a failed adoption attempt by a family friend who wanted to give Joshlin a better environment. It just highlights her vulnerability.
And looking bigger picture, the sources place this case within a wider context, don't they? A crisis of child trafficking in South Africa.
They do. A criminologist is quoted saying these kinds of cases are likely way underreported. Kidnapping rates are rising in the country. And the NPA, remember them, they called this case groundbreaking.
Why groundbreaking?
Because it led to convictions for trafficking where the child was actually sold and remains missing. Apparently, many previous trafficking convictions might have involved sting operations where kids were recovered. This highlights the difficulty and maybe the prevalence of cases where the child just vanishes into the system.
And that links back to that awful alleged motive needing her for eyes and skin, possibly connected to traditional practices, which the NPA called akin to slavery.
Yeah, it points to a really dark demand, doesn't it? A specific exploitative market for children or parts of children. It's horrific to even think about.
The trial itself, it lasted 8 weeks. Held in a community center, which is interesting, allowed the public to attend, showing how significant this was nationally. Over 30 witnesses.
Yeah, painting this very complex, very troubling picture of Joshlin's life and disappearance. And a key point noted in the sources, Kelly Smith, Appollis, and Van Rhyn all chose not to testify. They didn't take the stand in their own defense.
And there was input from a social worker involved who described Kelly as manipulative.
Yes, that perspective is in the reports, believed she was the mastermind behind it all.
So ultimately, the prosecution's case, built mainly on those witness accounts, Lombard, the pastor, others, it convinced the court.
It did. Guilty verdicts for kidnapping and human trafficking.
Which brings us to the sentencing. May 29th, 2025. Judge Nathan Erasmus delivered the sentences.
And they were severe. Life imprisonment for all three. Kelly Smith, Jacquen Appollis, Steveno van Rhyn for the human trafficking charge, plus a concurrent 10 years for kidnapping.
The judge apparently saw them as equally responsible, noted their lack of remorse, said there was nothing redeeming or deserving of a lesser sentence.
Yeah, and their names go on the child protection register too, meaning they can never work with children again. That's all also reported.
The reaction in the courtroom, according to the sources, sounds intense. Applause from some community members' family, but mixed with just deep sadness.
Understandably. Very high emotions.
But threading through all of this, the investigation, the trial, the convictions, the life sentences, is the one fact that just hangs there, the one the sources keep coming back to.
Joshlin Smith is still missing.
He's still not found as of today.
That's the agonizing reality, the central, heartbreaking unknown. You can feel the pain from the family and community in the reporting.
Yeah, like Joshlin's grandmother, reportedly pleading directly with Kelly in court, bring my grandchild back or tell me where she is. Just devastating.
And her teacher, Edna Mart, describing how the kids in class still ask about Joshlin every day. She played Joshlin's favorite song in court. They even showed a video of Joshlin laughing. Apparently left many people in tears. A raw reminder of the little girl lost in all this.
The police have said, the sources mentioned, that the search continues. They're looking beyond South Africa's borders even, so that there's still that official effort ongoing.
But it's a search without clear leads, it seems.
Oh.
So this case, I mean, as documented in the sources we've gone through, it just presents this incredibly harrowing picture: vulnerability, poverty, addiction, exploitation, leading to the worst imaginable outcome for a child. And while the convictions offer, some legal justice.
The main question just remains unanswered. Where is Joshlin?
Exactly. You have 3 people serving life sentences for trafficking her, yet nobody knows where she is. It really forces you to ask, what more can be done?
Both in trying to find her, specifically, and maybe more importantly, what needs to change to address the root causes? The poverty, the addiction, the demand, the things that put children like Joshlin in such terrible danger in the first place?
It's a heavy question, one that definitely stays with you long after you finish reading about the trial and the sentencing.